Hello, I'm Harry, and I got a question for y'all. Are you wallowing in your own pig pen? Well, if you are, maybe this might help you. I'm going to be going on about the story of the prodigal son. More than likely, I'm going to split this up into a couple segments to make it easier on the system. But before I start, if you like this, if it helps you in any way, or if you're curious about what happens next, go ahead, drop a like, a comment, and subscribe. And hit the bell notification on the side of the subscribe button so you know when I do post new stuff. Now, like I said, this is the story of the prodigal son. A little background. Jesus was preaching to the multitudes, the sinners and the tax collectors, inviting them to be with him. And the Pharisees and the scribes did not particularly like this. To them, they were probably looked upon these sinners and taxpayers as common swine, dirty. And when they approached him about this, Jesus gave them 3 parables. This is the third in the series of parables. The first one was the flock of sheep and the one that's lost. The second one was the woman and the lost drachma. And the third and final one was the prodigal son, one of my personal favorites. Anyway, verse 1 says there once was a certain man who had 2 sons. Pretty self-explanatory. Verse 12, the younger son asks his father for his share of the inheritance, like right now. Which, looking at it from the outside in, looks like the kid was selfish, spoiled, and inconsiderate to the point of insolence. And basically wishing his father dead. And the father complies and proceeds to divide up the inheritance between the 2 brothers. Shortly thereafter, a few days, he decides he's going to move off to a far country to live. I sure hope he knows what he's doing. And when he got there, do you think he lived in peace and prosperity? No, not at all. He blew his inheritance on riotous living, as it said in the verse. In other words, wasteful crap. Things that, yeah, they might be nice right now, but ain't really going to do him a bit of good. And, of course, he lived high off the hog. Pun intended, Joe. So, can you guess what happens next? That's right, something bad happens. Just as soon as he spends the last of his inheritance, a severe famine hits the land. And he is found without any coin to buy the basic necessities, food and shelter. It is so bad, he gets to the point where he indentures himself to one of the countrymen there, which, in an act of poetic justice, or bad karma, whatever you want to call it, him being a Jew of Jewish descent, was made to take care of the swine, the pigs, the hogs. And if you don't know, in Jewish tradition, pigs are considered unclean animals. And he had to tend these animals. Talk about irony. There you go, folks. Irony right there. It got to the point where he was envying what these pigs were eating. And no one would give him a bite to eat. Nothing. When he came to the realization that, hey, my father's servants live better than this. They have food to spare. which means they probably took some of their leftovers from the dinner before to work with them for lunch. So what's he do? He decides to pick himself up, clean off the muck, and decides to go back home. He knows he's not worthy of his being called his father's son. So he has prepared a speech begging his father to take him as one of his hired servants. And when his father sees him from afar off, he chases him down and kisses his neck and orders his servants to bring out a fine robe, a ring, and sandals, and to kill the fatted calf for celebration. Now, the older brother, who was working the fields at the time, hears the commotion and asked of one of the servants, what is going on? The servants told him that his brother has returned and his father has ordered the fattened calf to be slaughtered for a feast in celebration. Now, how would you feel if you were the older brother who did everything you were supposed to, and you find out that your father is holding a feast for your brother who decided to take his portion of the inheritance and squander it on frivolous stuff? If you said you wouldn't be too happy, well, he wasn't. He was angry. And he wasn't going to join in on the festivities. Well, his father came out and asked him, why aren't you joining? And he proceeds to basically gripe his father out for holding a feast for someone who squandered his inheritance, while the older son himself couldn't even get a mere pence of that, a goat, to celebrate with his friends. Well, the father proceeds to reprimand him and remind him that his younger brother was practically dead to him, and he has been brought back to life. And this is a reason to celebrate. Now tell me, folks, isn't that something to celebrate? Basically being brought back from the dead. Coming from the muck, filth, and slime that is sin. Coming back to the Father, knowing we screwed up. Knowing we're only fit to be his servants. But yet, he welcomes us with open arms and restores us to where we belong. We don't deserve this. None of us do. But he does it because he loves us and he cares about us. So tell me, look deep down inside yourself. Are you still wallowing in that muck, filth, and slime that is a hog pen? And if you are, I beseech you to find the strength to pick yourself up, humble yourself, knowing that you messed up, and come back to the Father. He's waiting for you. He is actively looking over the horizon, waiting for you to return, so that he may outfit you with the right clothes, the clothes that you rightfully belong in. A ring showing our relationship to the Father, and a pair of sandals so that you may walk without hurting your feet. The question is, are you ready for it? Or are you still in the part where you're living the high life? You're living high off the hog, so to speak. And if you are, remember this: the famine will come. You will be indentured to one of the countrymen, and you like the prodigal son, will be tending what is considered unclean. Is that what it's going to take for you guys to realize that the Father's waiting? For you to be in your own filth and just nastiness, to realize that your Father's servants are living better than you? Or are you going to play it smart and learn from this prodigal son? Turn from your ways and accept the Father again? The choice is yours. I can't make it for you, but nor do I live with the consequences of your choice. But for the love of Yeshua, give it some thought. Think about what was given to you as an inheritance, and think about how you used that inheritance. And let the mighty Yeshua convince you to come back to the Father. He's waiting with open arms, ready to welcome his son, his daughter, his child. Until next time, my friends, this is Harry King saying, Yeshua bless and shalom.